Welcome to Dale's Dominion podcast, where we discuss Virginia real estate and beyond. Here's your host, Dale Shoop.
Welcome to Dale's Dominion, Virginia real estate and beyond, where we dive deep into the world of real estate and title insurance. And when that gets a little bit boring, we'll talk about money and motivation, cars and coffee, and maybe burgers and bourbon. I'm your host, Dale Shoop, and today we have a very special guest joining us. She's a realtor at EXP Realty and owner of Shenandoah Estates, an avid real estate investor with over 40 flips and 22 rental properties. Please welcome Katherine Goode to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dale. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So we'll jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from a cattle farm in Blackstone, Virginia, to becoming a successful real estate investor, property manager here in the Valley?
Yes, indeed. So I wholeheartedly believe that the lessons that I was taught when growing up is the largest reason I've become successful in my career. So I grew up on a pretty large beef cattle farm in Southern Virginia in a town called Blackstone, Virginia. And my father was the farmer. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. We call her a domestic engineer for most of the time when I was growing up. And I have two older brothers. We didn't have much growing up, so I certainly was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. And I definitely think the way we were raised and what we were taught shaped us as adults. I think that being a parent is such a sensitive thing because kids soak things up like sponges, and they do soak up your way of thinking, mannerisms, thought process. And I'm just very grateful to have the parents that I had because I am who I am because of them. So the biggest thing from the farm and childhood development that I have taken with me as I've gotten older is the mindset that I was taught, that mindset that my father drilled into us as kids, that it's our duty, obligation, and responsibility to work. He taught us discipline. I mean, it is crucial to learn discipline, and that hard work will open doors for you that you never knew existed. So these little wisdom tokens that were taught on a daily basis really has carried me into my adult life and professional career and guided me on educated decision making. So I want to just tell you and share one childhood memory that really impacted me in a way that has helped me be successful. And from the time we all turned 10 until 18, instead of a gift, like a new trampoline or a nice doll house, a new car, whatever, my father would give us a cow. In hindsight, me in 2020, a cow is far greater of a gift than a new bicycle, even though as kids, we wanted the bicycle. So the purpose of doing this was my father was trying to teach my brothers and I about investing. You know, it was up to us to take care of that cow, to maintain the responsibility of the asset, to deal with the risk or loss that could happen if the cow got sick or stuck in a mud puddle and broke its leg. You know, to look at the livestock market, the sales of when the best time to sell was, and all of the decisions surrounding this cow, this asset. So we had options. We could keep the cow as a pet, make no money on it, incur the expenses of feeding it and keeping him alive. We could make the cow a steer. We could sell it or its meat, but of course we'd have to find the customer for the meat. We could keep it a bull and we could have offspring produced and eventually more cows, more assets. And that was the route that I took because I thought, man, if I could have 6 versus 1 and then another one my next birthday, that sounds great. And basically through all of this, we had to buy the hay, buy the grain and the vaccines. And it really, really taught us about budgeting and expenses. And so I think that real estate is much the same. You know, we're investing. It doesn't matter what the product is. In this instant, as a child, I was dealing with cattle, but now it's with real estate. So at the end, I've got to know what my product is, what it's worth, what the market for it is. Is it better to hang on to that investment, convert that investment into something else, to sell it, and the timeline of how to do that. And another note going into budgeting, I think we'll get a little bit, hopefully, into this a little bit later on. But I think budgeting is one of those crucial things that needs to be taught from a very early age. You know, I only had the house, the food and clothing, and I was allowed to play sports. Outside of that, when I turned 16, If I wanted a car, I had to pay for it and for the insurance. So I had to think about that, knowing that when I was 10 years old, trying to budget with the cows and a part-time job of raking leaves at my neighbors and that sort of thing. So
Oh,
that's kind of my childhood.
wow, that's pretty incredible. What valuable life lessons. That's really wise, uh, wise parenting on your dad's part.
Yeah.
So from there you go to Bridgewater College, right? So what was that like, and how did that influence your approach to real estate and business?
Well, when I was a senior in high school, all I could think about was volleyball. I'm a 6 foot tall girl and I just love sports. So, with that, I remember just like it was yesterday, sitting down with my grandparents over Christmas break, and they say, "Well, what's the next plan for you, Kat?" And I was like, "I don't know. I got accepted to Bridgewater College. I know I can play volleyball there. Well, what do you want to do with your life?" And obviously, as a 18, 19-year-old at that point, you don't know. And they said, "Well, you know what? You should probably think about doing physical therapy. That's a really good solid career with benefits." And so, boom, then and there decided at the Christmas table I was going to be a physical therapist. So I went on and I did get a degree. I got a double major and a minor from Bridgewater, a major in Spanish, a major in health and exercise science, and a minor in nutrition. I utilize my Spanish a ton, but the other stuff, it's more on a personal level. What I did learn through being at Bridgewater, though, is having an open mind that there are other theories, there are other mindsets about things. And it just is a growth period of learning who you are in the world and what the world actually operates like.
That's pretty cool. So then from there you at some point you made the jump into real estate and established Shenandoah Estates.
That's right.
Um, so
And
what sets that apart from other real estate adventures here in the area?
oh man, well, this is such a loaded question because I'll be totally honest in saying that right out of school, I've got these 2 degrees and my minor, and I got accepted to a grad program to go get my doctorate of physical therapy. And real estate at this point had never entered my mind.
Oh,
When I was in school, I realized that it was significantly more difficult than college. And it really is like a full-time job. It demands your full attention. And I was still treating it like college. So I did not designate enough time to my studies
hmm.
because I was so involved with still working on the weekends, playing volleyball twice a week in a rec league, playing co-ed softball once a week. And ultimately, Dale, I didn't make it through grad school. I made it through 1.5 years in a 3-year doctoral program because I had spread myself too thin and was doing poor work, and actually failed a 8-week practical course where you go and you shadow a PT and you're handed over the work. And I just didn't do well in that.
Oh no.
And so at that point in my life, I had never faced failure like this before. And I had all of these thousands and thousands of dollars in student debt for the college and then for the grad program. And not to mention the time and effort it took to actually go and attend class and be there. And I'll be honest, it hurt me really bad. It hurt my
Hmm.
pride. It hurt my confidence. And it made me feel like a failure. But what was I going to do? Sit around and mope and be a victim of my own mistakes? Well, I did for about 3 days. And I cried and I prayed and I just wondered what my life looked like. And that's when I really started to think. And there's a phrase that I'm going to say here that I say to myself at least once a day: begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. Where am I going? What is the end goal? And what do I want in life? And so I want to point out that looking back, I was never truly interested in being a PT.
Hmm.
That was something that was put into my mind that my grandparents, and I wanted to make my grandparents super proud, but it was never my mission in life or my passion to where I did want to put all of my time and energy and prioritization into that. And so um, basically, back to present time, after I got the letter that I was no longer going to be into the program of physical therapy, I got on Indeed, found a couple of jobs, started making a little bit of income. I already was working on the weekends at a wedding venue. And I went on to the bank and I got a line of credit because I decided, you know what? I'm going to flip my first house. I'm going to do this. And one thing in my childhood, one of my brothers is 11 years older than me. And one of the other little part-time jobs that I do to make money to, go to the movies with my friends or whatnot was to help my brother with his handyman projects. So I was painting. I knew how to crown mold a whole house by my senior year of high school. And so I just thought, you know what? I'm going to flip a house. I want to make some money. So I got a line of credit, and I, within 3 months, had that house flipped and closed, and I paid back the line of credit and all the expenses. And at the end of it, made out with a profit of $42,000. And at that point is when I decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do with my life. This is my investment. I'm investing in my brand, in my name, in my company. And if I'm willing to do the work, which I know I am, and I'm willing to put in all of the time necessary, like I didn't in PT school, I can create a good life for myself. So out of all of that, Shenandoah Estates was born. And literally 5 years later, I've flipped over 40 homes, and I've got 22 rental properties and 2 Airbnbs, my primary residence. And this month, I'm buying 4 more properties to flip this year. But an important thing to note is I don't see any of this as work. I am really, truly excited when I get up. I get to create my own schedule. And I love the creativity and the concept of home ownership, of building something, of investment. And I think that investment portion was put into me at such an early age that it became innately a passion of mine.
That's so wise. I love begin with the end in mind. That's really smart. So, and I also know you're a really proactive problem solver. I think we had a client together who was struggling with the whole encrypted email piece, and man, by the very next transaction, it was built into your introduction letter, like they're gonna use encrypted email, and you're gonna have to figure it out. Here's how you do it.
Right.
So I really appreciate that about you. It's so what other kinds of challenging situations have you encountered in your real estate career, and how did you navigate through those?
Oh man. Okay. So there's no one problem for each tier. You've got the property management problems with the tenants. You've got the material problems with house flipping. And then with clients, you are dealing with a lot of different problems in addition to working with different listing agents. If I'm representing a buyer, you've got to just be able to work very well with people and wake up knowing that things are going wrong. When you have an attitude of, oh man, I can't believe this happened to me, you just expect that it's going to happen and just already have contingency plans in place to the best of your ability. But there is one situation regarding real estate sales that comes to mind. I was representing a buyer, and she was in her 70s and had never purchased a home before and always had this dream of home ownership. It never worked out for her. Here she is in her 70s. We're at the height of the market. You remember in COVID, where interest rates are really low, inventory super low. We still have, very low inventory as is today. But we found a house in Bridgewater, needed a lot of work done to it, which is probably why it was still on the market a month later. Anyway, get her under contract, get through the home inspection, and there's a deck on the second level that is so sketchy that I wouldn't even walk out on there when I was showing the property because you would fall through. Anyway, she really wanted it fixed. The sellers they were not going to do anything with it. And I reached out to the listing agent and I said, look, I'm going to go and I'm going to replace that deck. I'm going to take care of it. It's going to cost me $2,800. Can you chip in $300 for me to help this get along? And that listing agent told me no. And all I said was, you know what, that's fine. And I lost most of my commission on that deal, and I'm happy for it because at the end of the day, I got my client a safe and secure home. I got my client's trust and her confidence, and I have reaped dividends on the referrals that have come not only from her, but also from others. So I guess the biggest stress in dealing with real estate is when you cannot collaborate with other agents to achieve the same goal. You have got to have that client's best interest at heart. And whether you're selling a house for a client or you're helping them buy, it doesn't matter what it takes. We're going to get it done if that's the end goal for all the parties.
Wow. Yeah. So what sort of other strategies do you employ to make sure you're providing exceptional service to your clients? You work with buyers and sellers, right?
I do. I honestly think it all comes down to education. You've got to know your product. You've got to know the neighborhood. You've got to know that contract like the back of your hand, know the bylaws. Um, I'm just so, I just don't understand sometimes when we run across agents that don't know really what the contract says. It's just basics. And so in order to best represent my clients, I just know my product, and I begin with learning them as a client. How do they work? How do they operate? Do you want me to send you properties? Or are you going to send them to me? Because I know you're out there looking on Zillow. Would you prefer text or email? So when you get a baseline, you really can mold yourself to helping somebody, just so long as expectations are clear on the forefront.
Cool. So you've been here in the Shenandoah Valley for over a decade now. What do you think makes this area unique in terms of real estate opportunities or lifestyle?
Oh man, Virginia is for lovers of all things. And so I love the Shenandoah National Park. My house backs right up to the national park.
Nice.
So I think that's a huge draw. Not only do you have Shenandoah, but George Washington National Park. There's tons of biking opportunities. You've got Massanutten right there. You can go whitewater rafting on the Shenandoah Valley, or the river. So I just think that whatever you love, if you come here to the area, you're going to be able to fulfill that love.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how you squeeze in time for fun stuff like hiking and kayaking and canoeing when you're so busy as a realtor and a property manager.
Yeah, so I do too. I struggle with that. Prioritization of my time. At the end of it, I learned a really hard lesson with PT school, and one that burned me so bad that I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Right.
The first thing I did was list my priorities. So I listed what is it that is most important to me in my life? And you've got a plate, and then you've got your dessert. So I've got to know what is the main on my plate. And it was family, church, exercise, friends, and work. And just in that order: family, church, or building my faith and spiritual life; exercise. I've only got this one vessel, and I've got to treat it right if I'm going to live to an old age. Friends, I have to maintain sanity and have a good social construct around me. And then work. And I'm married, so ultimately my husband comes first. So when I learn what that is, the second thing is saying no to distractions. That's been very tough for me, but once I became clear on my priorities, there's just boundless distractions that come up that you've just got to learn to say no.
Yeah, that's true. So how about some tips or insights that you have for new home buyers, maybe first-time home buyers that are navigating this real estate market right here in Harrisonburg and the Shenandoah Valley?
Yeah, so the very, very first step you want to do is to set a realistic budget. You got to know what you can afford, and that's first and foremost. Prioritize location. Where do you want to be? What part of Virginia? What part of the Valley? You got to determine what are your priorities, what are your must-haves, and then what are the nice-to-haves, what's on the want list. And more often than not, your very first home is not going to be your dream home. It's just a stepping stone to get you to one step closer to where you want to be. I do highly recommend coming with a home inspection just to ease your minds as you're getting into it. And if you want a home warranty, you're going to need a home inspection to go off of. And one big piece that you may not think about when you're a first-time home buyer is planning for the future. Think long-term when you purchase a home. Will this property meet your needs in the coming 3 to 5 years? And I want you to consider potential for that property appreciating and how the neighborhood and surrounding area is developing. So I truly believe the forward-thinking approach ensures that your investment will remain sound and stable.
That's excellent. So what kind of role do you think community involvement plays in successful real estate career?
Mm, there's so many networking events and whatnot in the real estate world. I believe that it is important to give to a community. And I'm a woman of faith. I believe that God will give through you so that you will give to others. And the more you give, the more you are going to get. And that is just truly how I, from the bottom of my heart, believe. So, community involved, if you can give, you better give. And be very careful to not have greed in your heart. How I give to the community, I was the junior varsity volleyball coach for Broadway High School 2 years ago. And then last year was my first year being the varsity volleyball coach for Eastern Mennonite High School. And this year will be my second year. Outside of that, I go to schools. Last week rather, I taught a real estate 101 course in the adulting class of Eastern Mennonite High School. And I'm on the schedule to teach at Harrisonburg High and Turner Ashby as well, and I don't get paid for it, but it's to give knowledge, give resources. And I believe that that helps the community because it's going to help better those students' lives as they get into adulthood. Outside of that, being able to give under the table where nobody is able to see what you're doing, that's the best kind of charitable contributions I can do. And so I'm not going to tell you what I've done on this podcast, but it is very important.
Sure. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you, not just for the hard work you do, but the kindness and humility you bring to others, both professionally and personally. You and I end up at many of the same networking events, and you really seem to have a knack for engaging with folks and making them feel valued. And I'm grateful that you feel confident enough and comfortable enough to refer your clients to us. And I really look forward to working together in the future.
Yeah, Dale, you do a supreme job. I've never done a deal with you where we had any issues, and I continue to look forward to working with you in the future. Top
Me
notch.
too. Okay, so as we wrap up, can you share some of your favorite local spots or hidden gems in Virginia? Something you love or recommend to clients or fellow residents?
Well, the most favorite spot that my husband and I like to go to in Harrisonburg is Ruby's Arcade. It's just a really fun thing. You can get out, have some pizza, have a beer, play some pool. And so that's my favorite local spot. Outside of that, my favorite spot in Virginia is actually a place called High Knob Observation Tower. And that's in Norton. It's a little less than 5 hours from here, but it has a tower that there's a lookout to where if it's a clear day, you can actually see 5 different states. It's just a
Wow,
beautiful spot. So I encourage you to go check it out if you haven't already.
that's incredible. So how can folks connect with you? How can they find you if they need a realtor or they're looking to chat with you? Or yeah,
So my name is Kat, C-A-T. Last name is Goode with an E at the end, Goode. All you have to do is just Google it and you're going to find me right there on Zillow. That's the best way. I can give you my cell phone or email. My cell phone is 540-333-0768. And my email address is my company, Shenandoah Estates, Estates, .va, as in the state of Virginia, @gmail.com.
that's perfect. Thanks so much. It was great having you on.
Thank you so much, Dale. Thanks all of you for listening. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.